Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cyber Conversations. My name's Josh. I have Vern here, and we're discussing the different sci-fi movies. Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. The purpose of this show is to talk about what we like and what we dislike, knowing very well that we are very different people. We've known each other since we were teenagers, and we've been friends since then, but we disagree on a lot of things, including Star Wars. We both love the franchise in general, but we have different favorites. Some movies we both love, some movies one of us loves and the other one doesn't like so much. We're both fans, and the purpose of this is to illustrate the fact that we can talk about this and agree to disagree without resorting to name calling, unfriending, blocking, all those other things that seem to be running rampant on the
All the
internet now.
ings,
Yeah, all of those things.
all the
So,
ings.
um, so I think
Well, I
we're
have
ready
good
to.
news for you.
Okay,
I have good news for you. I don't think there is a Star Wars movie that we can both say we hate.
that's true. I don't
We can
think
agree on that.
there is
Nah.
not a single Star Wars, not just movie. I like all of the shows. I'm not saying that everyone has to, and to our viewers as well. If you don't like a show or one show or another, that's fine. I have no problem with people who don't like certain shows or even most of the shows. My only problem is when people don't like them for what I think are valid reasons, like if you don't like a show because, oh my God, it's got a woman as the lead. I see nothing wrong with a woman lead, but if you don't like the show because of the writing, or you don't like the show because you don't think the story is good, those are valid. Um, I would never
Yeah. I mean,
accuse.
we could probably count on one hand how many people are out there who hate a Star Wars thing because it has a woman lead. I mean, that's an
I
extreme stereotype that
Yeah,
very, very few people probably snap into.
I suspect that too. I'm just saying, for the most part, I have no problem with a person who doesn't like a show because of a valid reason. Something like they don't think the story was good, they don't think that it was developed, they feel
Usually
like
they
it
can
was.
explain it well too,
Yeah, if they can explain it well, then it's not a big deal, and I have no problem with that. Um,
which is
there
what we
are
will attempt to
shows,
do here.
there are shows which I like more than other shows, but I haven't, excluding the Star Wars Holiday Special, I don't think there's anything from Star Wars that I can't stand. And
There's nothing in Star Wars that I can't stand. There's something in Star Wars that bores me, and we'll probably get around to talking that. There's something in Star Wars that I have not seen yet, and there are many things in Star Wars that I have complaints about. But there's nothing with the Star Wars label on it that I've ever seen that I was like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. I hate that. I never want to see that again. That's never happened.
yeah, yeah, and I don't think anyone, well, I don't think either of us would, as much as we love Star Wars, I don't think either one of us would call it Shakespeare, but they're all great movies.
No, you don't go to the
There's,
Star Wars trough for caviar.
yeah,
That it's just not a thing. Like, let's not pretend. It is. I will go so far as to say it is modern mythology. I will go so far as to say that it is our 21st century version of the ancient campfire tale. And in that sense, it is very important. I may be overthinking it, but yeah, I can't overstate the importance that our modern mythology has on our worldview, our way of thinking, the way we see each other, and Star Wars is like the epitome of that. So it's not that it's not important. It's not some goofy, silly, nerdy Saturday morning kids thing necessarily. It has a much greater impact on all of us and on society in general, whether you care about it or not. But Shakespeare, no, it's you don't go to this trough for caviar. Is my point.
yeah. And I do hear a lot of people saying that it's for kids, and in a way it is, but I think that it has always been geared as family entertainment.
Uh huh.
So, I mean, that's
Well,
kind
more
of,
than that, everybody's a kid.
well,
Everybody's a kid.
everyone is a,
Everybody was a kid.
yeah. I used to be a teacher a long time ago, and what I started realizing, at least this makes sense to me, is a child is the person who likes what they think they're supposed to like because they think it's expected of them. An adult likes what they like because they like it. So
That's
when
interesting.
I was a middle school teacher, I actually encountered a few students that were like, I don't like the Avengers because they're for kids. They're for little children and babies. I was like, dude, the Avengers rocks, and if you don't like the Avengers because you think that's not adult enough of you, that makes you look a lot less like an adult. I'm an adult and I love SpongeBob. I don't care if you judge me for it because, like, who cares? Judge me. Go
Well,
ahead. I still love
Well,
SpongeBob.
the reason why kids pretend to not like things that they liked a year ago, or pretend to not like things that they actually do like, is because of peer pressure and of things that are deemed cool. And so, we all, went through that to some extent or another. But kids will be, really into Pokemon when they're 6, and then by the time they turn 9, it's an absolute embarrassment that they ever were into something like that. I mean, I've
Of
seen all 3 of
course.
my kids go through that process, and it's I call it the lemming principle.
Yeah,
But
and that's kind of what I said. You know, if you like something because you think you're supposed to like it, and you don't like something because you think you're supposed to not like it because of your age, or it's too any reason.
you're being
I'm
a
not allowed
lemming.
to. If you don't like, if you're a guy and you say you don't like My Little Pony because you think it's only for girls, that's a childlike way of thinking. If you're a guy and you like My Little Pony, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know if that's a good example because I've never actually watched My Little Pony, but you know,
That might be a little liberal. I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't think I'd be
I
that
don't think there's
broad in my
anything.
scope.
I don't.
Obviously, My Little Pony is made for little girls. That doesn't mean that it's not good for boys. It doesn't mean boys can't be into it. It's clearly, marketed toward young females,
Yeah,
and
yeah, but
its
that's not the.
whole palette is aimed at that.
Yeah, but that's not the issue. It's obviously it was made for little girls, but if a boy likes it, I'm not going to judge him. And the point is, as an adult, he'll say, "Yeah, I like it." And if you don't like the fact that I like it, go pound sand. I'm going to like it anyway. But a kid will hide it and be like, "No, I would never watch that."
And they do all the time. And
Yeah.
so that segues into the point that I was making, is that we are all kids. We take ourselves very seriously, and we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we get the job done and everything. But deep down inside, our fears, our anguishes, our dreams, the real us that our family and our loved ones and our spouses and things understand, that is the kid. The kid is the root that is formed, and that kid is still alive. And I think when that kid fades, and I think a lot of sci-fi fans out there can synergize with what I'm saying. When that kid fades, you don't want to go to Comic-Con anymore. You don't like
Hmm.
birthday parties anymore. You're not into sci-fi anymore. You just want to watch your soaps.
Yeah.
You want your
Watch.
sex. You want your sex. You want your mobs. You want your violence. You want your reality TV. But that cynicism is kind of a scab. It's a wound that's covering over the fact that that child has died. And so I would say that's one thing that unites all sci-fi fans, is that we're all big kids. And I think that it's not because we are childish, it's because we are still connected to that child inside. We're engaged to it, and it's something that we see in each other.
Yeah. I wish I could speak that eloquently, but I can't. But I
Well,
have
it's
the same
I'm not trying to
sentiments.
be eloquent.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like position myself as we begin to talk about Star Wars, like what, that may be a key point in, the course of the conversation.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's any other housekeeping things before we start, but I think that's it. So why don't we get into
Housekeeping.
so why don't we get into Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, which was released in 1980. George Lucas at first didn't realize he was going to be able to make this movie, and of course he made A New Hope, which we discussed last episode. Um, but of course, A New Hope did wildly well in the box office. People were clamoring for more, and George
Instant
Lucas
classic.
gave us The Empire Strikes Back. And what I can't, I think I said this last week, but in case I didn't, and Vern already knows this, The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie. And
Sure.
more
You
than
and
that,
80% of the Star Wars crowd.
yes, yes, it is a popular movie to have as a favorite.
It
I
is
would,
not, just to kick off the conversation, my favorite Star Wars movie.
huh?
We'll get there.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do know what his favorite Star Wars movie is, and we're going to discuss that in a future episode, although it might come up in conversation today. I will go so far as to say not only is The Empire Strikes Back one of my, but not only is it my favorite Star Wars movie, it's one of my favorite movies of all
Movies of
time.
all time, sure.
Yeah, it's not my absolute favorite of all time. I'd have to actually think about that a lot. My go-to is Raiders of the Lost Ark. But
Really? At the top of your list?
I think so. Although
Great,
I
great.
have
Love
re
that movie.
it is a
Instant
great movie,
classic.
but I
Uh huh.
have rethought that over time because my tastes have changed a bit.
I did know that.
And like actually one of my favorite movies of all time, and this is a movie that I would never think I would like. Like if someone gave me the elevator pitch of this movie, I'd be like, this sounds so boring. But it's actually one of my favorite movies of all time, Shawshank Redemption.
I'm really surprised. Wow.
Yeah.
Favorite movie of all time. Wow.
One of.
I'm
It's
really
still, I don't
surprised.
know if that's my favorite of all time, but it's definitely up there.
That's funny.
The
That's
Shawshank
that's
Redemption
really
is a
fun. That's a
freaking
serious movie,
amazing.
man.
I know. It's a freaking
Freaking
amazing
amazing.
movie. When was the
It
last
was
time you
it
saw
was
that?
a it was a very good movie. It was probably 10 years ago that I saw it. I've probably seen it twice. It's it's not even in my top 50, but I'm not saying it's not a good movie. It is. There's a lot of good movies out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
So
not, I
so
can't even
here's a
say if that's my favorite movie of all time because there's so
it's really
many.
hard. Oh, there's
Yeah.
so many. I have a
Django
favorite movie and I
Unchained,
think
Pulp Fiction.
it will reveal us right off the very bat, and I'm putting all my cards on the table because, nothing to hide. But my favorite movie of all time happens to be Pacific Rim. Absolutely no competition. I understand that it isn't Back to the Future, it isn't Empire Strikes Back, it isn't one of our classics that we grew up when we were kids, but definitely my favorite movie of all time. And also not Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
None of
Guillermo
my
del
movies.
Toro is a underrepresented genius, and most people would not hold a candle between Pacific Rim and Shawshank Redemption, but that's who I am.
Yeah, no, and I don't. I hope that none of our listeners are judging either of us because neither of us are looking at Shakespeare.
I hope they're
I
thinking
love,
whatever the hell they want to think.
yeah.
That's what I
I
think that's
see, and I see
the nature of
nothing.
this conversation, actually.
I see nothing to judge anyone if their favorite movie is Pacific Rim. Even though I don't agree, I still don't know what my favorite movie is because it may be Shawshank Redemption, but then again, there's also Pulp Fiction, there's Django Unchained, there's Fight Club.
Django Unchained, really? I've never even seen that movie.
I love that movie.
Wow, I should probably see it.
I
Okay.
think I'm a big fan of Quentin Tarantino.
I am absolutely not a fan of Quentin Tarantino. That's a whole. We're getting off subject here,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah. You cannot sell me on Tarantino's work, man. I get it that it's mega popular, but I've never seen anything that he's made that I liked, even in the slightest.
But wasn't there, because there is a, oh wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. Quentin Tarantino was talking about directing a movie, and for a second I was going to say he was talking about a Star Wars movie, but no, he was talking about doing a Star Trek movie.
Oh yeah, that's a
But
joke.
yeah, he never
He's
did.
also
I think
wasn't
it's
he also
canceled.
talking about doing a Superman movie? I mean, those are internet rumors. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I don't know. I had heard that he was in line to
I do
direct
not.
a Star Trek movie, but I have no idea what happened. I think it was canceled, but I think it was legit, but I never really looked into it beyond, hearsay. So I have no idea.
As a mega fan of Star Trek, I do not want Quentin Tarantino anywhere near Star Trek.
Oh, he's a riot, though. I mean, well, it's kind of like if you ever watch Kevin Smith. I love Kevin Smith too, and he talked about directing a superhero movie and why he doesn't want to do it. And it's the same thing. Like I agree with him. As much as I love Kevin Smith, and he knows superheroes, but he was talking about what he would want to do for a superhero movie, and I'm like, that does not sound like the kind of superhero movie I want to watch. I'm not going to
Well,
go
I
into
w-
it beyond that
this
because we're off topic already, and I think that link is dead because I think the video where he talks about it is now part of a video that he's selling, which means that you can't even put it on YouTube. But
this is
anyway, we're
probably germane to the conversation, but like I would say, go make any superhero movie you want. Anybody, go give us all the heroes you can think of. I mean, sometimes it's about throwing as many darts at the wall as you can, hoping one of them's a bullseye. That we don't need to always be telling stories of Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman.
No, no,
There are
but
new
his.
heroes that haven't even been invented yet. So I would say if you're going to recreate something that somebody else did, respect that somebody, respect their art, respect their creation, respect the boundaries of it. Enhance it if you want, but stay within the boundaries. And this is a general thing that I feel about so many remakes going on right now.
So
Star
what's to
Wars The
say?
Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5.
So
Okay,
yes,
so
without
in
further ado,
1980, whatever it was, I think
1980.
82,
No,
80,
it's
80,
1980.
81, something like that.
It
Okay.
was 1980.
Well, maybe it came to us a little later than that. I don't remember, but we were in Texas at the time, and we were dirt broke. And I'll never forget. My dad said we can go do fireworks for the Fourth of July, or we can go see Empire Strikes Back. And you already, if you heard the first episode, then you understand that Star Wars I didn't actually see until it came on TV, and it was cut with commercials and edited. And the first 20 times that I saw it, quote unquote, I listened to it on a cassette tape that my dad brought into a movie theater and recorded for me. So we overwhelmingly chose to see Empire instead of the fireworks. So for Fourth of July, we went to the theater and we saw Empire Strikes Back, and it was a real treat because we were so broke that we couldn't do both for the Fourth of July, which gives you the impression that we hadn't seen very many things in the theater. In fact, I think that might have been the first movie I ever saw in a movie theater, Empire Strikes Back.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode. It's a little embarrassing, but for a long time during my, well, not a long time, but for what felt like a long time in my childhood, there was a period where I refused to go and watch movies. And if I remember correctly, and that's a
For
big
what reason?
if, well, I'm getting to that. I'm not completely certain of the movie, but I think it was Battlestar Galactica. Uh, I was very young. I don't know how young. All I know is that I went to the movies and Battlestar Galactica started with a similar music cue to Star Wars, a very, very loud, sudden bang of music, and it scared the crap out of me. And at that time, I went with my dad. He went to get refreshments and he hadn't gotten back yet. So I was sitting alone in the theater. That blast of music caught me completely unawares, and he wasn't there, and I freaked out and I swore I was never going to go to a movie again. So it was a couple of years before my parents managed to get me to go to a movie theater. I'm a little embarrassed to admit that. Please don't judge me. I was very young. By the time Return of the Jedi came out, I saw that in the theater. But I think, if I remember correctly, The Empire Strikes Back I did not see in a theater the first time. I saw it on TV because it came out at a time when I was still afraid to go to the movies.
Huh. If you should be embarrassed by that. I mean, it's just a childhood trauma that ended up, vilifying the movie theaters in your head.
Yeah,
You turned out okay. You ended up,
I ended up
seeing
becoming a
movies
huge
eventually.
moviegoer after I did go back to the movies. I would practically lived in the movie theater by the time, like when Return of the Jedi came out. I went to see. This was a little bit later, but when Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade came out, I think I saw it 10 times over 1 week when it was released in the theaters.
Nice.
Yeah, I was there all the time. Um,
So, Empire Strikes Back.
The Empire Strikes Back, as I
The
said,
original
is
movie was
sorry.
a complete one and done. Lucas made a big old risk doing something so weird at the time, and he didn't really know if he was going to have funding for the second one, but it was a smash hit, so he gathers a little bit of business sense together and he separates from the studio that almost ruined Star Wars in the first place and goes off on his own with his brand new company. So Empire Strikes Back becomes the very first time where Lucas is not necessarily sitting on the throne; he's sitting behind the throne, and he has other people dealing with the direction, and so there's more geniuses that are now into the mix. And the special effects house that he started is now in full swing, doing jobs for other people. And this is their chance to really show off. So we have the stop motion effects and the blue screen, battles. The asteroid field, my God, nobody had ever seen anything so sophisticated before. The AT-AT battle on Hoth, absolutely stunning. Everything about it, visually stunning. Honestly, if you go back to 1980 and you watch this movie, as a child of the of the 21st century, you can go back to that time and recognize this is the future. This is the glimpse of the future. This possibly is like the first visually spectacular, special effects ridden blockbuster hit of the summer. I'm not saying life didn't exist before 1980. I'm saying these kind of movies are commonplace now. They're coming out multiple times a year, and they are the ones that make the big bucks. And Empire was like maybe the first one that was on that caliber.
Yeah. And this was, like I said, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. For more than just the action, although the action was great, it kept happening. There were a lot of action beats, so there wasn't a lot of slow time. Remember last week, even though I don't really have this complaint anymore, but as a 10-year-old, A New Hope had like a very slow part on Tatooine. This movie had none of that. It was very fast paced, even though it wasn't constant action scenes. There was enough action going on that there was never like really long downtimes. And even as a kid, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah,
But also the set pieces were amazing, and I don't think that's like brilliant set pieces or gorgeous scenery make a movie, but they help.
they certainly don't hurt.
All of the Star Wars movies have great scenery, I think, in my own opinion. All of them have great set pieces, great areas and locations, but the Empire has some of my favorites. I love the idea of Cloud City, and some people don't like the special editions because of how much they added to. Like I've heard a couple of people want to see it the way it originally was shot, where there was very few windows. But I love what George Lucas did with the special editions, where he added all those windows. Because if you have a Cloud City, you know that there's going to be tons of windows looking out to that orange sky that just goes on forever.
Yeah, the
Um,
idea of a gas mine is super cool. Like that's inspiring. Like a gas mine, whoever thought of that before?
yeah,
And yet, like look at Jupiter. Like I imagine life in the atmosphere of Jupiter that we're not even scanning for because we expect that all life everywhere is going to be carbon based and it's going to be rooted in water and therefore we're only looking for water planets. There could be floating even sentient gas bags in the atmosphere of Jupiter that can travel 325 mile an hour winds, no problem. Do we have to be limited to thinking that's not possible? What
that's
about a mine that is looking for a particular isotope or something that is found in a particular layer of a gas giant, and so you have this floating city in the clouds. It's like techno heaven, and yet it's based on a premise that is very sci-fi, science fiction. It's the imagination being applied to real world situations that we know, and it's like, what if?
yeah. I actually just without trying to get off topic too much, when I was in college, I did take a class on astronomy. I mean, a very in-depth college course on astronomy, and I did actually come up to the teacher after class one day and ask him that very thing that you said, because he was talking about the different forms of communication that we've tried to do, and he kept saying the term where where life can exist. So, that
Sure,
excuses
yeah,
places like Jupiter and the sun. And he was like, because life can't exist there.
that
So
bothers me. That bothers me a little bit.
after class, I went to him and I said, like, do you honestly say that life cannot exist on, for example, the sun? What if there are creatures that are practically fire that live on the sun? And
Yeah,
his response,
assembled electrical beings that thrive in that kind of heat for reasons that are part of a physics that we haven't even really figured out or discovered yet.
right. Well, his response was at least somewhat satisfactory. He said he doesn't, and this is just this teacher, I don't know about
Sure.
astronomers in general, but this teacher, he said he could accept that that is a possibility, but if there were such a creature, it's so far removed from our uh, um, our ability
Experience.
to live. Well, it's not even experience, it's our ability to live. We can't come anywhere near their temperature, and they wouldn't be able to
Right.
come anywhere near our temperature. So, at least for
Sure.
the purposes of communication, we have to narrow it down somewhat, and this was what we have to do. If there are
That's
such
fine.
creatures living on the sun, they may find that there was that record that we put out in space back in the 80s, and it's
That's called
supposedly
Voyager, Josh. Watch more Star Trek.
no, no, I'm not talking about Voyager. There was another, or was it Voyager? The one that had that
Yeah.
mural,
The
not the mural, the one with the, it looks like a man,
yeah.
and it's okay. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah,
Voyager. That's Voyager,
it's.
bro.
See how far removed I am
It's
from
actually
college?
it's actually outside of the solar system at this point.
Yeah,
Off topic, but yeah, Voyager is our first interstellar craft, and that is pretty cool. I also want to reiterate, in just as a science fiction fan, that Einstein is the one that said that imagination is more important than intellect, and the reason why he said that, obviously, is because intellect can figure a lot of things out, but how does it know where to go if imagination doesn't picture something that has not yet existed? And that is, I think, the beauty of science fiction, is that it pictures, it's a bunch of artists, visual artists, effects artists, story artists, writers, musicians, everybody coming together, hundreds of them, to imagine something that doesn't exist. And that it should inspire us. Like, why are we building these freaking rockets? There's nothing in space. Wait a minute. There is something in space. Here's what it is. Here's what it could be. Here's what it could look like.
yeah.
Um, can we split the atom? Well, I don't know. It's never been done before. Let me imagine it first. Einstein figured out his relativity laws as a direct result of imagining himself riding on a beam of light. That is something that the human imagination is capable of, that intellect and logic can't touch.
I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how embarrassed I am that I mean, it's just that I'm old and I've forgotten a great deal of college, but I forgot Voyager. So,
That's all right.
you know.
That's all right. Well,
I
if I
I
may say
really
so,
wish
one
I
of the
could
reasons
edit that
why
out, but for the
you
sake of
can, you can.
no, I'm not going to edit it out. So all of the fans can laugh at me. I had my senior moment.
It's okay.
There
But
are a lot of those.
if I may be so bold, one of the reasons why you didn't remember that is because you're not a Star Trek fan.
I am a Star Trek fan.
No, you're not.
I am a Star
Okay.
Trek fan.
All right,
I
fine.
just
All right, fine.
but it has been a long time, and for what it's worth, I
When was the
remember
last time you
V'ger
saw the motion picture?
about a year ago.
Really? You saw Star Trek the motion picture a year ago?
About a year ago, I watched on Paramount Plus, and I watched the director's cut.
Okay, okay, okay. I'll give it
Um,
to you.
and I do remember that V'ger is Voyager, but they don't show that. They don't show that plaque. I don't think in the movie. It's been a while
Yeah, they
now.
do.
Like they do. Okay, I
Yeah,
can't even
Kirk
remember.
rubs like the oxidation off of it,
I
and
thought
you
he
can
just.
see that it says VGER.
Yeah, no, I know he rubs it off the letters for Voyager, but I don't remember the plaque that has the picture of the
Mm.
man and
Oh,
like the numbers that's
it does
supposed
not.
to. Yeah, so
It does not. It does not.
that's what I was thinking of. I couldn't remember that it was on Voyager. I just remembered the plaque
Yeah.
that has like
Yeah.
a kind of stick figure man
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So
some
getting
math
back on
and
topic, like
yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, oh, we're the only way life is going to exist is if it's on a water planet that is about Earth size and about Earth temperature,
yeah.
and then they'll look just like us and they'll build buildings and they'll have spaceships and they will intercept this thing and they will see that there are,
Well, just
what
yeah,
if
but that's
what if it turns out to be an electrically based life form that is in the form of a giant gas bag floating in the high pressure upper atmosphere of Jupiter? Is that thing going to have any kind of capacity to comprehend the structure of Voyager and the inscriptions on it
well,
and what
that's
they could
exactly what
entail?
that teacher said. So that's why I was kind of satisfied with his answer. He said maybe there are these
Yeah,
creatures, but
yeah.
they're so far removed from us that they won't be able to understand what we put out on Voyager, and we're not going to be able to understand anything they say, and we certainly can't coexist because there's no way something that takes that kind of form could live in our kind of atmosphere, and we can't
I
certainly live
think
in
we
their
could.
atmosphere.
I think we could. I think we
Well,
could
maybe
eventually. Like
eventually.
look at the Tholians, off subject.
Yeah,
Look at the Tholians on Star Trek. They live in like 400 degrees, like Venus temperature,
well, yeah,
and they walk around in suits.
but that's 300 years from now. He was talking about now, right
Yeah,
now,
well, they're also
today.
bad guys. They're also
Well,
bad guys, demonstrating the idea that if we were really that different, we may not be able to like get along.
yeah, Anyway, that's off topic, but I was
Yeah. So
satisfied.
on topic,
I was
um,
satisfied with that teacher's response, though, that we
it
just
is. It
can't.
is a satisfactory response.
Yeah.
Empire is Lucas's opportunity to really kind of blow out his original intention with the aliens thing. You know, obviously he went crazy with the cantina and such, but Empire introduces us to the little pig guys. What are they called?
Oh, the Ugnaughts.
Ugnaughts, right?
Yeah.
And then we have an Ugnaught in Mandalorian, so like that
Yep.
creates permanent lore. It introduces us to Hoth and the idea that animals could exist on an ice planet like that, and one of them
Yep.
looks like a freaking dinosaur. You're riding around on something that looks like a parasaur, and then the
The
Wampa.
Wampa.
The Minox that chew on the electrical
Yeah, and
cables,
they
like
live in space,
animals that
basically,
exist
or
in the vacuum of space.
yep.
That's imaginative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the space worm,
Yeah. The space
colossal,
slug, right?
colossal starship swallowing space worm. That I love that stuff. That's why Pacific Rim is my favorite. It's imagination unleashed. I'm a professional artist. Is what I do.
Yeah.
So I love imagination, and I don't strap in, sister. This is no cave. Like that's super cool to me. So
Yeah.
if you're watching Empire for the first time, and it's like, what does he mean? It's not a cave? And then that shot when the slug is like extending out of this enormous asteroid and trying to take a bite at the Millennium Falcon. That's crazy. That's
I,
inspiring.
yeah.
That's original. I love
Everything
it.
about The Empire Strikes Back is a plus to me. Like, I can't think of anything I
Mm.
didn't like about it. And that's why it's not just my favorite Star Wars movie, it's one of my favorite movies of all time
It definitely
because,
deserve that position.
yeah,
Most people agree.
and it's not just for the action, although I love the action. It's not just for the set pieces, even though I love the set pieces. I love it's got my
That's a lot of pluses.
I think that it's got my second favorite lightsaber fight of all of Star Wars when Luke fights Vader. I like it more than the
Yeah.
lightsaber fight in Return of the Jedi, and I like it more than any of the lightsaber fights in the prequels, which don't hate me, but I don't like the lightsaber fights in the prequels. And we'll get on
Well,
that in a couple of weeks. But
it's. I think that it should be like we can talk about the visual, but there's so much more than visual going on. This is a story,
yeah,
and so despite the fact, I think one of the geniuses of Star Wars is that you have this literally galactic scale. But we are humans. We are actually the ones that tell this story. We are the ones that watch this story, and we have very small lives. We think about global, crises and global threats, and we try to think about the nation or the state or even the city that we live in, even the neighborhood we live in. If you are in a school, the school is overwhelmingly large. You don't know everybody in there. You don't know anything. You have a very narrow field of knowing what's going on in there, even if you're the principal. So we need to have a small relatable thing going on in a powerful way with this galactic background. And so it's sort of set up in Star Wars at the expense of it, keeping with the beats of the story and keeping with this galactic scale. But certainly in Empire Strikes Back, it begins to collapse down to a much more personal, like you're really seeing this romance get off the ground between Han and Leia. You're really seeing this interpersonal relationship building between Luke and Leia. You're starting to see much more of the droids and the everybody's got chemistry. Everybody, the way Luke interacts with 3PO, the way R2 reacts to Han, the way Han bounces off of Chewie, the way Leia treats Chewie. I mean, everybody, every single interaction of every major character in this movie has chemistry. And
yeah,
then it culminates in Vader and Luke, and it is just the way that it's lit, the way that it's paced, the way Williams' soundtrack
yeah,
soars and threatens and broods, and then the ultimate revelation that Vader is, a relative of Luke. Luke's trying to
yeah.
be the ultimate good guy.
I think we
Vader's
can say
obviously the picture of
I
the
think we
ultimate
can say
bad
that he's
guy.
his father. I don't think we're worried about spoilers at this
No, no,
point.
no. I'm not spoiling anything. Uh, um, but I think that to get to the to round out the conversation and get to where we're going to disagree, I don't mean any offense to the vast majority of people out there that would agree with you, Josh, but
Mhm.
Empire Strikes Back is not my favorite, and I have no criticism whatsoever at the cinematography. The acting, the effects, the pacing, the soundtrack, the story, the dialogue. I have no complaints about any of it. It is a perfect movie, and for that reason, it deserves to be near everyone's top of the list of movies that have ever been made. If you unless you absolutely hate sci-fi, and I've met some people like that.
Yeah. A
The
part of
reason why Empire Strikes Back is not my favorite is because I look at all of the angles, some of which probably matter to me more than other people, and I really have uh, a moral cataclysm way of looking at stories. I think it's a big part of what makes a story meaty is, who are we trying to save here? What's under threat? Who's doing the saving? Who's doing the threatening? And so you could call me old fashioned, but I have some very classical ideas about good and evil and about the clash of good and evil and about evil being something that threatens good people being people who build things, people who fix things, people who raise children, people that continue a society and give a society its look and its feel and its efficiency and its service and its heart. And so when things come along that threaten that, that is a villain. And when a villain rises up, we have a responsibility as people, and therefore I like to see the responsibility in a story that heroes rise up to defeat the evil, and I want to see the evil defeated. So for that reason, Empire Strikes Back and Revenge of the Sith, which typically land on the top of every Star Wars fan's top list, those neither of those are among my favorites
yeah, and I
because
can
of the story, because it ends with wow, we are really screwed here. Good is against the ropes, and good is kind of confused and split up, and we've really had a blow. We've had our heart tore out. Luke lost his hand. Luke found out he's related to the bad guy. Han is frozen. And so Empire ends with a very dark tone,
yeah.
and for that reason, no matter how brilliant it is, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how ingenious it is, I can't put it at the top of my list because I love to see the victory in the end. I love to see the goodness that was threatened be restored.
I absolutely
And
get that.
yep,
And
that's my
actually,
perspective.
I would agree with you. This would have been my second favorite, except for the fact, and this is where the big, like next week is where our disagreements are going to start to really show, is because
Mm,
I didn't like Return of the Jedi, not
mm,
much at all. It's not my least favorite, not even close, but it is not even near my top. And part of it is because of how Luke was portrayed in Return of the Jedi. And we're going to go into that a lot, I think, next week, and especially when we get up to The Last Jedi. There's a lot to say about that. But that's actually like a big part of why I like The Empire Strikes Back so much and why I don't like Return of the Jedi is because in The Empire Strikes Back, um, Luke stops being a hero to me. He, like I said last week, he was the BDH in A New Hope, and he ceases to be in this movie. And I find him to be, I don't want to say useless, but he really doesn't accomplish anything. He the first thing he does in the movie is he gets bitch slapped by the most clumsy snow creature I've ever seen in my life. Um, and I say this to be, comedic a little bit, but it kind of is what happened. I mean no disrespect, but then he gets saved by Han. He fails to stop the Empire from destroying the generators on Echo Base. He fails to complete his training on Dagobah, goes to rescue Han, fails to do that too, um, and then gets basically loses to Vader in every part of that lightsaber fight. Even though I love the lightsaber fight because of the raw emotion on it. And what I didn't get to say before, my favorite lightsaber battle in all of Star Wars was actually between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in A New Hope. That was my favorite lightsaber battle. I know I'm going to get wrapped in the mouth for that. But this
have
was
you
probably,
seen the remake of that on YouTube? Have you seen the guy that did the that whole scene but like souped it up?
I don't
It
think
is
so.
so good. Oh, I gotta send you a link to that.
If
It is
it's
so well done.
choreography like in
If that's your favorite battle in all of Star Wars, you have got to see this video.
maybe because the thing is what I didn't I don't want to spend too much time on it because we're not talking about them right now. But the prequels bothered me because the lightsaber battles, they were well choreographed. They didn't look like lightsaber fights. They looked like dance routines. They made me think I was watching Solid Gold, the Star Wars version. I wanted to see actual lightsaber fights, and I have studied actual fencing, and not like I've never been a fencer. I've never been that athletic, but I've studied it because I found it interesting. And no sword fighter worth his salt would do all of the flourishes that the characters in the prequels do, turning their back on the bad guy or on their opponent, swinging their lightsaber behind their back or over their head. All that does is gives you a chance to be thrown off balance. And as soon as you're off balance, you lose. Unless the other guy is so busy with his own flourishes that he doesn't do anything, which actually does happen in Revenge of the Sith, which we will get to. But if you watch closely, there is a part where Anakin loses his balance, and it should have been the end of the fight right there. Except Obi-Wan was too busy throwing his lightsaber behind his back for another damn flourish instead of killing the guy he was supposed to kill. Um,
What battle are we talking about here?
Well, that was from Revenge of the Sith. At one point,
Oh,
Anakin
okay.
does like a big flippy jump to land on the little skiff that Obi-Wan is on, and he actually loses his balance, and you see him throw his arms up behind him, and it would have been a perfect time if Obi-Wan wasn't doing a flourish, he would have just swiped across him and cut Anakin in two. That's what would happen in a real sword fight, but they were too busy dancing to to actually end the fight, and that's why it kept on going.
Well,
Um,
I think it's pretty obvious that Lucas meant for Luke to be a loser in Empire Strikes Back. I think
exactly.
that is, we already talked about last episode, the hero's journey and the books that Lucas had read that had inspired him to create this modern mythology. And in the hero's journey, there are a lot of failures that have to be experienced by the hero on his way to becoming a hero.
Yeah,
I think that there's one shot in the in the lightsaber duel between, if you want to call it a duel, um, between Luke and Vader at the end, when Vader stops and he holds his lightsaber up to his face and he starts using the Force to pull objects at Luke.
yeah,
And there's one shot that I always thought was so goofy, but I understand what Lucas was trying to do with it, and it's exactly what we're talking about here. It's where there's a piece of debris that comes out, hits Luke in the back, and then with the reflexes of a sloth,
yeah.
Luke
He
turns
turns
around
around.
and swipes at midair. And while he's swiping at midair, another piece slaps him in the back. And then with the same reflexes, he turns around and swipes at that, missing both.
Yeah,
And it's like, there's no way that would have made the final cut just because Lucas was like, perfect. He was going for the idea that Luke is a loser.
that
He has lost his mentor. We thought he was awesome, but the fact of the matter is, this kid just got a lucky shot. It wasn't Luke that destroyed the Death Star, it was the Force
yeah, and
that
that's
destroyed the Death
and
Star.
that's part
And
of
so
why.
when
I'm sorry.
so what you're saying you don't like, I'm saying is part of the life breath of Empire Strikes Back, because
Wait, no.
Luke has to go through this period where he's endeared to. Look at Empire. Look at Indiana Jones. Okay,
Yeah, but
Raiders of the Lost Ark, maybe one of your favorites.
yeah,
Indiana Jones is such a cool character because every single time he punches somebody, he feels it on his knuckles. He gets hit, he gets stabbed, he gets kicked, and he suffers for it. He's in pain all the time, and it's that's how we know that's how it would be. And there's something about like the contrast between Indiana Jones and Laura Croft. I think that Angelina Jolie did a great job in Laura Croft too, but in the first Tomb Raider movie, I hated it because she was like laughing at all the danger, and she was absolutely indestructible, and she never made a single mistake, and there's nothing fun about that at all. There's certainly nothing human about that.
yeah. I think
So
you're
Luke, go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's why I like the Empire so much and why I dislike the lightsaber fights in the prequels because they are so good and they do all these ridiculous dance moves instead of actually fighting. What I
Why do
loved
we
so
keep
much.
talking about the prequels?
Well, I'm just saying, like, because I was comparing the two. I wasn't saying that there was anything wrong with the lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader. That's my second favorite
No, no, no,
lightsaber
no,
fight.
no, no. Wait, wait, wait. Let's go back. You were saying that you didn't think that you thought that Luke ceased to be a hero at a certain point when he got bitch slapped by the Wampa
Yeah, yeah.
because everything he did after that was basically a screw up and he didn't accomplish
Right,
anything. And I'm
right.
trying
But
to
I
tell you
got
that's part
sidetracked.
of the life breath of the story.
Yes, I know. And that's my fault. I forgot to finish that. What I was going to say, and I'm sorry I got sidetracked. I don't see Luke as a hero because of these very things, and they are good. The problem I have is with Return of the Jedi, where I wanted to see him be a hero, and I don't see it. And we'll talk about that next week, but I
Yeah,
don't
I have a
see,
lot to say about that
yeah,
actually.
because I don't see Luke as a hero, even in Return of the Jedi, and I'll explain it.
Okay. And
I
I
do,
do, and I'll explain it.
yeah, and I respect your view, but that's one of those things that I've been looking forward to when we did this because I know how much we're going to disagree on Return of the Jedi because our fundamental view of it is different. And we're going to get to
Yeah.
that next week. That's
Yep.
exciting. But for now,
But our
that's
fundamental
part of
view of
why,
Empire Strikes Back is slightly different too. So, and
yes,
that's what
but
we're
we
talking
both
about
love
right
it,
now.
so it's not nearly as
Yeah, that's a
uh,
good point.
skittish because we both love this movie. It's just not your favorite, and it is mine. But I love that lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader, and it has the most galactic ownage of all time when Vader has cornered Luke in the middle of nowhere. It looks like a place that no one has set foot in like a decade. Luke is like off on the side. He's lost his hand. He's on that little tiny thing, whatever it is, that weather vane looking thing, hanging over the middle of nowhere.
It's a extended platform for an antenna. Obviously, there was an
Well, yeah,
antenna
yeah.
there that he was clinging to.
Yeah, but that's what I was looking for. He was clinging to that antenna. He's lost his hand, and that right then, with him on the edge of nowhere, that's when Vader says, "Oh, and by the way,
Let me
your
pull the
mom."
bottom out from under you, kid.
Yes, yeah. By the way, your mom, I effed her.
Yep.
That talk about a slap in the face, that was
Yep.
like absolutely the most amazing. I said bitch slap before about the Wampa. Talk about a galactic bitch slap right there.
Yeah.
Darth Vader
But
just,
that did not see you. You're very much thinking with a 21st century brain. I think you're looking at it like, damn, Vader really got him. In 1980, the general attitude, the general, pace of thinking that Americans had, we had just seen this kid rise from nothing. We saw him lose everything. We saw him get his whole family killed. We really hate the Empire. We saw Darth Vader choke that nice man and imprison and torture that nice girl. And we saw this ruddy blonde-haired kid smile the whole time while he was destroying everything that this massive technological army had built. And now he's got his hand chopped off. Now he came to save his friends with the best of intentions and he's on his knees. Now the the bad guy is telling him that even his legacy is destroyed. Not only did I kill your aunt, your uncle and destroy your home, not only did I just about kill your girlfriend, not only have I dismembered you and beaten you. Not only is your father's lightsaber tumbling to its doom, but guess what? Your past is the opposite of what everything you've done has been a lie.
yeah.
Now, in the 1980 perspective, Josh, I'm going to argue to you that the audience is gasping not because, damn, Vader bitch slapped him, because, dude, this kid, we're all about this kid.
Oh,
He
I
is,
know.
he
I'm,
is being punked, and that makes Vader the bad guy.
of
The
course.
sentiment is that Vader is darker than we even thought.
I don't mean
Vader
to
is
make it sound
low.
I don't mean to make it sound like I look up to Vader. I hate Vader in the way that we're supposed to.
For that reason, right?
Yes, and yeah, for
That's that, and
that
that's
is
good. That's
exactly it.
effective storytelling.
I say it like that because I want to elicit a laugh, but no, well, the first time I saw it, I wasn't thinking, "Damn." I was thinking, "Holy crap." Like this changes everything. Luke has been
Yeah,
destroyed by the most evil. I mean,
yeah,
Darth Vader is so evil in The Empire Strikes Back that you're almost afraid to look at him because he
yeah.
might
He's
catch you.
threatening.
He might catch you looking at him and force grip you through the screen.
He's genuinely threatening,
He
and
was
I think that the general consensus is, man, this what an asshole. This guy's
didn't
an
he win?
asshole.
Didn't he win the greatest villain of all time? Wasn't he
Well,
like
yeah, that's
listed
what.
as number one?
Let's face it. Empire Strikes Back is 50% responsible for seeding Vader as one of, if not the most memorable villain of all time.
I think I think it was Time magazine, I could be wrong, that listed the top 100 movie villains of all time. And this was a few years ago, so I'm not completely sure, so don't bite my head off if I'm wrong, but I thought Darth Vader got number one, beating
And
out
no surprise,
beating
no surprise.
Sauron, beating Voldemort, you know, no one comes close.
And
That's
and
if
part
I'm
and
if
part
I
of the
remember
reason is
correctly.
this scene that we're
Yes,
discussing right now.
absolutely.
Part of the reason is because, like, damn, that was a really dick move.
Yeah.
And so it again, I think Star Wars is very much a moral play. It's a moral discussion, and if you're having a conversation about Star Wars and you're trying to stay away from morality, you're not really discussing Star Wars. You can't,
Yeah.
unless it's just purely from an artistic point of view.
Well, it's kind
But
of a weird thing that in this day and age, we see so many people who say Darth Vader is cool. He's not cool. He is the biggest dick of all time. And not only that, he doesn't deserve, I don't feel he deserves any redemption, even though he gets it. I mean, I'm never going
Man,
to
I think
forgive
when
him
we
for,
start talking about the prequels, I think we're gonna have to talk a lot about Anakin and his fall because it's really, like, honestly, Vader is cool. If I, that's
he's
a
a
word that
cool
doesn't mean
bad guy. Like
anything.
he's an amazing bad guy, and I love watching him. But
Vader's
as
memorable. There's a
yeah,
specific word. He's memorable
definitely memorable and
because
impactful.
he's so dark, because he's so evil.
Yeah, and he's impactful. He is the first thing I think of when I think of Star Wars. But I
Sure.
don't like him. Like as a person, he's a horrible person. I don't forgive him for anything. Even the stuff that he did as Anakin, I don't forgive him for anything good he did, for all of the evil that he did. Um, and I don't forgive him even based on what he does in Return of the Jedi. But that's a talk for next week. One other thing I do want to talk about, I don't want to change the subject, but another thing I love, one of the shots that is absolutely my favorite it's my favorite shot in The Empire Strikes Back, is the reveal of the Executor. The first time we see it,
Oh yeah, with the Imperial March drumming into the background.
it's the first
Yeah,
time that we
that's
get a good
classic.
listen to the Imperial March,
Yep.
which is I think it's the most iconic song in Star Wars. The first thing that people think of is probably the Rebel fanfare, which is the
If you're
main
talking
theme.
iconic, that's one of
But
the most
yeah,
iconic
Imperial March
scores ever made
is
for a movie.
absolutely incredible, but also the way they do it. Remember, I said that my favorite opening of all the Star Wars movies was the Star Destroyer chasing Tantive 4 over Tatooine in Episode 4. But one of my favorite shots in the Empire, well, my favorite shot in The Empire Strikes Back is the first reveal of the Executor, because is it executor or executor? I know that normally that word would be executor, but
I've
some
always
people
thought of it
think,
as executor. Hopefully, we're not mistaken.
yeah, if some people like to say executor because it executes people, but really the word
That's
is
dumb.
executor. I'm going to call it
It could
executor.
call it the SS ship blower upper.
Yeah. But the first time you see it, and I think a lot of people don't even realize it, is we already have seen how massive the Star Destroyers are. But then during this first scene, or the first reveal, you don't even see the Executor. You just see a Star
The
Destroyer and a
shadow.
shadow goes over it.
Yeah.
And
And
then
we
it
already know Star
shows,
Destroyers are massive.
yeah, they're gigantic compared to the normal ships like the Tantive 4. So we weren't expecting anything bigger than that. And all of a sudden, you see a whole bunch. First, it shows one Star Destroyer being getting a shadow over it. Then you see there's a whole bunch. And then they finally show the Executor. And something that I didn't notice as a kid, the Executor is dwarfing them all and it's behind them. If
Right.
it were in front of them, you could
Yeah,
say
it's a
it's
city.
just closer. But no, they made sure to show that there are Star Destroyers in front of it, which means it's
Yeah.
further away and it's
Well,
still
and
dwarfing them.
let's face it, we've already been introduced to the Death Star, and the Death Star dwarfs the Executor.
Yeah.
So if you can build a metal moon, then these Star Destroyers, which were kind of like the symbol of Imperial might, they they don't have to be the pinnacle of the fleet. And
No,
Vader, we want to put Vader in something super intimidating, and so thus the Executor is born.
yeah, but I love that scene. That whole opening with
Yeah,
the theme
yeah,
and
me too.
showing it is just absolutely amazing. And of course,
Yep.
we can't stop without mentioning the fact that John Williams is at his peak. This is my favorite of all the Star Wars soundtracks. I've listened to all of them,
Um,
and this is my favorite
I
soundtrack.
don't have a favorite soundtrack. I definitely think that Williams has a consistent story of coming up with two or more new memorable Star Wars themes with every single movie. And so now when you hire somebody to do scoring for a Star Wars production, they have this library of themes to draw from, all of which incite nostalgia in so many people. So
I agree, but
Empire is just one of many brilliant soundtracks in Star Wars, I would
oh
say.
yeah, I'm not going to diss any of the soundtracks. I like all of them. When I say that it's my
But you
favorite, I just mean
you
this is
you
my
it can be your
absolute
favorite.
favorite because
That's cool.
even if you're thinking about the two or three different motifs that he comes up with for each movie, I'm not a fan of the Han and Leia theme from Return of the Jedi. I'm not really a big fan of the Ewoks theme.
Love it.
Um, I like it. I don't love it. Um, I I like the what's it called?
Yoda's theme is also in Empire, and
Empire.
that
Yoda's
is
theme is one of
awesome.
my favorites.
So we haven't even talked about that yet, Josh. Empire. We've talked about the eye candy. We've talked about the power moves. We've talked about the morality. We haven't talked about the depth. Empire does something that no movie has done before,
Oh yeah,
unless you're talking about maybe the
it
Ten
actually
Commandments or
it
something.
actually establishes these characters and
A
gives them much
religion.
more depth. Oh
It
you
establishes a religion. It establishes the magic of the Force, and it introduces us to Yoda. And all of the scenes in Dagobah are like philosophical candy. It's this ingenious amalgamation of all the things that we humans already believe, but with all the labels taken away, and then projected out 10,000 years to a mixture of a diversity of creatures that all work together in harmony and understand this universal energy. And not only that, learn how to live in synergy with it. They're not controlling it, they're letting it flow through them. And Yoda has so many, I mean, and Yoda himself, as a puppet, the ridiculousness of having some guy under the camera with his hand up in this thing like Kermit the Frog. And then, that's how we're going to sell Jesus. That's how we're going to sell this, this, um, Buddhist master. We're gonna sell the ultimate wise man that taught Obi-Wan. We're gonna sell him with this talking green puppet.
but they
How do you
did
pull
it.
that off?
Yeah.
They did. They do. And it's like it's even better because I love Yoda's speech to Luke about how look at me.
Yeah.
Judge me
Judge
by
me
my
not by my
size, do
size.
you?
Yeah.
Because my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. And then Luke is like, "You're so
You
full of
want
shit, little green
yeah.
man. Like what? Like you're talking. I've got a practical problem here, and my friends are in trouble, and you're gonna spout this wisdom to me." And then motherfucker reaches out with the Force and pulls the X-wing out of the swamp and sets it down on the shore. And then there's a moment there after he's done moving the ship, Yoda breathes in and breathes out, and it's like you can sense that the little guy had this powerful flow of the Force move through him, and it was like it looked like this is a puppet we're talking about. And
Yeah.
yet, when you look at his reaction, it's like it felt like a familiar friend. It felt like a rush of power. It's almost like the satisfying sensation you get right after sex. physics. Like that was going on in Yoda's performance after he lands the ship.
Yeah.
And everything that he teaches him on Dagobah is thought provoking and deep, and it's sort of creating this world of the Force that we take for granted now, that nobody had ever seen before, nobody had ever even thought about.
Yeah,
and
when
and, and there was a lot of
yeah, no one
world.
even knew about the Force even based on the first movie because all they knew was it's some kind of mystical power that allows people to do a couple of magic tricks and
Obi-Wan barely had time to explain it.
yeah. So yeah, this movie definitely that whole
A-
everything on Dagobah was great.
And Lucas studied a lot of the world's religions to sort of, like I said, amalgamate them all into something that nobody really believes, but everybody can get behind. Something that really, you know, puts the supernatural elements that we all sort of sense into a new form of definition that nobody can really disagree with, but everybody can understand easily.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it hit gold.
Yeah. I don't want to cut this off at all. I do want to let you know we are at an hour and 2 minutes right now. So,
Okay.
um,
Well, I think given that I really didn't want to skip without talking about the depth and the religious factor of Empire Strikes Back.
absolutely. And I agree
I
with
think we've covered
everything.
it all.
Yeah.
I think we covered it all.
I don't like to cut things short, and I could talk about The Empire Strikes Back for
No, but
like
we
a
are trying to keep
day.
these around an hour.
But yeah, we did want to keep them between 40 minutes and an hour. I'm not surprised at all that we had enough to talk about with The Empire Strikes Back without even needing to think about anything that
Oh no.
we could probably talk for another hour without even trying.
You may
Um,
disagree with some of my opinions, but if you start talking Star Wars, if you pick your subject, almost any subject, I can gab about it forever
yeah,
until you're sick of hearing about
well, I don't want to do that though. And I know that, and
it.
I know that our audience is probably like, okay, can we wrap this up?
Yep.
So if you ever want to
Well,
hear more, though, we are looking forward to hearing comments if you can keep them civil, constructive. If you want to badmouth us, we're not going to pay attention to it because that's not what this is about. And I'd like to think that you, our audience, if you've gotten to this point, then you are mature enough and aware enough of yourself to know like we're trying to do the best we can. Neither one of us have done a podcast before. I do hope the sound quality is good. I'm learning the editing as we go, and so I am absolutely fine with constructive criticism. I welcome any advice you can give. If you're going to badmouth me because I forgot Voyager, if you can keep it friendly, I'm fine. Otherwise, I'm you know,
you're
if
your
you're
own
gonna
worst critic, Josh.
if you're gonna make fun of me, then you're not really worth my time anyway. So, um, I can take criticism, but I don't like bad mouthing. I don't like a bully, and I can do this all day. Um, so I guess that's that. Next week we are going to be talking about Return of the Jedi, and like I said before, this one is going to be interesting because if I'm not mistaken, this is Vern's favorite Star Wars movie, and it is far from my favorite. So we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, and I'm
It
looking forward
is.
to it. So that's it. I hope that you'll join us. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time on Cyber Conversations. My name's Josh, and this was Vern. Thank you very
May the force
much.
be with you.
May the Force be with you all, always.